We have the most beautiful soul here today for our inner view. And what I'm most excited about is the fact that Lori Love Jones, I know you hear this name all the time, that she found someone and said, "Oh my gosh, we need her to be interviewed for a Worthy Collective." And she's always right. She is always right. And when I had the chance to meet Michelle over the phone, we were just joking about how long this interview would be, and we could literally be here live probably for days because we were able to connect so well. And what I heard from Lori originally about Michelle is that she has acted on her gifts and she has brought them to share. And in the way that she has, she's going to tell you more about her mama's lullaby. And it's so much more than just those words. And the passion behind the scenes, what's happening in the partnership with her husband, and all the relationships that she has connected with is a true gift and the inspiration to all of us to recognize how a ship can turn with the right passion and purpose. And that's what I want to make sure that everyone knows is possible because if it can happen for Michelle, it's possible for all of us, and how you might partake in what she's created, or, she might be someone that you want to connect with. And now that we have technology the way that we do, just because she's in Tennessee doesn't really matter because there's so many resources and tools that we have. And so I heard about her heart. I met her heart over the phone, and now I'm so excited. So, Michelle, we would love to learn more about you and what you want to share. And we know that this might be a two-part interview because you have so much in depth. So please share about you.
Oh, thank you so much, Maggie. It's just a pleasure to see you in person because I talked to you over the phone and your adorable voice, first of all. You know how you have a voice and you think someone looks like something and you look nothing like I thought you were going to look like. It's so adorable, even more adorable than I thought. But anyway, so I've heard a lot from Lori about you, and so I'm just thrilled to be here. I grew up in Salt Lake City, Utah. I grew up Catholic in a very Mormon town. Everyone I knew was Mormon. My dad was Italian, my mom was Mexican. And so it was just a very interesting childhood growing up non-Mormon because it's very, very community. It's a large community and they're a very tight-knit community, which is beautiful. But it was interesting growing up that way. My parents smoked, and that was not a cool thing, obviously. And of course, I didn't like it either. But I just grew up with a lot of things like maybe strikes against me from some people's viewpoints.
Mhm.
But my parents were very untraditional in certain ways. My dad was a very big believer in vision and dreams. And he unfortunately was diagnosed with cancer when I was 2 years old.
Mm.
But, and this is kind of interesting, I just found this out from my mom not that long ago, that she knew about his diagnosis a year before they told him. And the doctor told my mom, and my mom was young. My dad was 12 years older than my mom. So at this time, my mom's like 27, I think, 26, something like that, very young. My dad's 12 years older than her. And he said, I don't want you to tell him because he's doing good and I don't want him to break his spirits. And they were building a restaurant called Mama Nicolo's. They wanted to share my Italian heritage family's recipes, right? And so she didn't tell him. She had to hold that for a year, my mom. And when I think about that as a woman and as a mother, to have to hold something so heavy inside of you, it makes me tear up right now thinking about what she must have gone through,
Mhm.
and which I'm saying that now because when I talk about my Mama's Lullaby project, I'll bring it all together at the end. But I have a very special place in my heart for women and for moms because we all have one, number one, and a lot of us are them in different ways. Sometimes not even having our own children, but at any rate, so my parents had this restaurant. He built it in an alleyway, which they told him is impossible. between two big buildings, Woolworth's building, and then I can't remember what the other building was, but it was on Main Street in Salt Lake City, Utah. And it was really, really cool, but it was only two-seaters, like, because it was just an alley. So they built a stage up above, and they hired a band, and on the weekends the band would play, and I was always there when I could be. And I remember, so I was 3 at this time, and I remember watching that singer up there, and I pulled my dad's hand over and I said, that's what I want to do. I just knew I wanted to be a singer when I heard her. And so as fate would have it, a few years later, I got invited to sing in a group called the Small World Entertainers, which my neighbors down the street, the woman, I used to play with her kids. They had 6 kids, and she was the pianist for this little group of kids. They would teach all those great 70s songs too. And, and so they taught us stage presence, and they taught us movement, and they taught us songs and harmony and all this stuff. And my parents didn't even know I had joined this group because they just thought I was over there playing. I was over there rehearsing. So one day I asked my mom and dad, I'm like, will you guys come to my show or my performance? They're like, what performance are you talking about? So here I am, like 5 years old, and I'm inviting them to this show. So that gives you a little insight of who I am. And I've always been, as a little kid, it's like when I want something, I just tend to go for it, which is great. It's great. Sometimes my husband calls me ready, fire, aim. And that means that sometimes I move too quickly, and then sometimes you fall in a hole when you just go, let's go, so not always the best way to go, but it is sort of how I've lived my life. Anyway, so I became a singer, and I sang with this group for several years. And I finally got my first solo when I was 7. And once I got that solo, I was like, oh man, I do not want to let this microphone go. And so I told my dad, I said, I really just want to sing on my own now. I don't want to sing with the group anymore. So I left the group. My dad became my manager. And all this time he's dealing with cancer. So I'm dealing with watching him go in and out of the hospital sometimes, watching him have chemo, the violent illness from the chemo. I mean, it was a lot of interesting stuff in my childhood, right? My mom had to work because my dad really couldn't work. We had to close the restaurant down about 6 months after they opened. They had to close because he was so sick. So I had a really different childhood than my friends. And my dad was the only dad I knew that had cancer. And he talked to me a lot about his impending death, right? I mean, I think he was really trying to, my dad was very positive and upbeat, and they told him he had like 6 months, but he said, no, I'm not doing that. So he lived 8 years from the diagnosis. And I watched his enthusiasm for life. I watched his optimism. I watched his love for people. My dad, he would meet, there was no stranger. He knew no strangers. And we might be on the street walking downtown or something. He'd meet somebody on the street, talk to him for a little bit. At the end of the conversation, he'd say, give him a hug and a kiss. Goodbye, Michelle. Like everyone he ever met, I had to give a hug and a kiss. It was kind of like, that was normal in my family, right? Give him a hug and a kiss. Goodbye. So I'm very open because of that, I think. I'm very affectionate because of that. And I've had to learn some lessons that way too. Sometimes you can be too affectionate and you give people the wrong idea, or you freak people out, or whatever it may be. Right. So there's just many things I've had to learn through what I was raised with. So when my dad died when I was 10. And so my mom was basically a widow, and she had 2 girls. My sister was 4 years older than me. And my sister really gave my parents a really hard time. She just was really angry and hurt and scared. And in those days, nobody knew about therapy. Nobody thought to talk to the kids and see how they're doing. Everybody's just in survival mode, right? So I was still singing. I was working professionally. I was getting paid since I was 8. My dad got it we had a manager in LA. I was on a show called America Tonight in LA. And I got royalties from that up to moving here 29 years ago. I was still getting royalties on that show. I never got to see it, but we played like little, we were McLean Stevenson from MASH, that show MASH. Do you remember that show? It was this fake talk show. And I can't remember who the Johnny Carson guy was, but you'd know him if I could think of his name. But anyway, McLean Stevenson was the guest, and we were he was a brownie leader, scout leader. And we were the kids on his scout. And he was a drunk or something. I don't know. We had to sing 99 bottles of beer on the wall. That's all I remember about that taping. you know. But after that one time, my dad just was too sick and we didn't have the money to fly back and forth to LA, and just it was just not doable. So after he passed, he made sure I had a great vocal teacher, and God, I believe it was God brought us to Blanche Christensen because I auditioned for another woman and she sent me to Blanche. Thank God. And I auditioned for Blanche. I'm 9 years old. And she says to my dad, she's a little young, bring her back in a couple of years. And she told me this story. She said, your father pulled me aside and he said, listen, I've got about 6 months to live and I need to know she's in good hands. And so she's like, what could I do? I had to take you. And so she took me in, treated me like her daughter. I think from that moment on, she never charged my parents, my mom, after my dad died, 6 months later, pretty much. She never charged my mom for voice lessons. I didn't know that. I didn't know that we weren't paying for voice lessons. And she took me under her wing and she taught me everything I know about music and artistry and visualization. And she was a very devout Mormon woman, and she was always trying to convert me as well, because that was her belief. And I love her for that, but she mothered me in ways that my sweet mom could not, because my mom was just in survival now,
Mm-hmm.
And there were a lot of things. And so I became, at a very young age, since I was working, I had bandmates that were 10 years older than me. All my band was 10 years older than me. And so everyone treated me like an adult from the time I was like 9. And it just kind of kept on that way. So as I met more musicians, I became involved with my first husband at 14. When I was 14, I met him at 13. He came and rented our room behind our house that we used to rehearse in. And when I saw him, I went, oh, I'm marrying that guy. I don't know why I thought that, but I guess that was what I was supposed to do on some level. And so I had a very untraditional childhood, and I secretly went out to get this guy that was 9 years older than me. And because I had been an adult, in a sense, for a long, long time, I didn't feel like a kid. And actually, I feel like I was more mature than he was, quite honestly.
We were.
Yeah. He had a lot of trauma in his life. I did not understand codependency. I did not understand addiction. Mm-hmm. And he fell in love with me. I fell in love with him. We had a secret relationship for many years, until I was probably 15, 16, and finally just kind of like let it be, whatever. I don't think my mom knew what to do with me, quite honestly. And I wasn't getting into trouble. I didn't drink. I didn't smoke. I didn't do drugs. And I was trying to save him from hurting himself. So that's where my journey began, as someone who was going to. And he had a little girl that was 18 months old when I first met her, Angelina, my stepdaughter. I just adore. To this day, we're close. But I thought I could save him. So I went down that rabbit hole, mm-hmm. of making him think he was good enough, like trying to see his greatness. He was a great musician. He was an incredible writer. He was a sweet soul, but he had a lot of trauma I didn't know anything about. So at 17, I'm a senior in high school. I just get a full 4-year scholarship to University of Utah, full ride in the musical theater department. I played the lead in Annie in December. Oh my God. I had a little red wig. I have a picture. It's pretty hysterical. And in January, I find out I'm pregnant. So I'm like, oh, wow. Everyone has all these high hopes. I'll be the first in my family to go to college. And I was like, oh, man, how am I ever going to do this? And Phil, my husband, boyfriend at the time, which I planned on marrying him after college. Anyway, that was just, we had talked about that anyway. So it wasn't like I had to marry someone I didn't want to marry. Excuse me. So I was scared, and I thought, I can't tell people, I can't have a baby right now. I can't do this. My whole life is ahead of me. And if I do this, it'll just change the course of everything. And people will be mad at me. I was really concerned more about what people thought of me. and what I was going to do. Okay. They already thought Phil was not good enough for me. That was a given.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't think there's anything anyone could have said that would make me not be with him.
Mm-hmm.
Nothing. And he had done some pretty poopy things at times too. But, you know, you get in that codependent relationship and I didn't grow up with a daddy. So there was that element of wanting the protector, but then the hormones kick in, it's just like all of the perfect storm. Anyway, so I called Planned Parenthood. I set up an abortion. It's so heavy on my heart. It so makes me, I have chills right now thinking about it. It's a Wednesday. I'm sick. I've got morning sickness pretty bad. I go to his house and we're scheduled on Friday to have the abortion. And he says to me, what if we just keep the baby? And when he said that, it's like this weight lifted off my shoulders. And I went, oh, yes, yes. And I felt like he was on board, And so I felt like, okay, we can do this together. And so I proceeded to call and cancel my appointment. And then I proceeded to tell my mom that I was pregnant. Now, the part of the story that you don't know yet is that at 14, when I first started having sex with him, we did not know how you prevent pregnancy, even though he had a child. He didn't know the time of the month. I didn't know the time of the month. So he asked his mother, when can a woman get pregnant? And what he got from his mother, whether it was what she said to him or what he got from it, was literally opposite of what was true. So guess what? When I think it's safe, boom, I get pregnant at 14. So at 14, I went to my mom. I lied. I brought my guy friend to my house, paraded him around so that I could tell them when I decided to tell them I was pregnant that it was his. Because then they could put Phil in jail, right? I mean, I'm underage.
Mm-hmm.
I was just crafty enough to go, this is my boyfriend, Joey, introduce him around for a bit, and then tell my mom I'm pregnant and tell her it's Joey's. And so my mom said, well, you can't have a baby. And I said, I know I can't have a baby. So she took me to her doctor, her gyno. And my brother, he's not my real brother, but I call him my brother. He was my first piano player in my band. He's been like a brother to me to this day, Nick. He took me to the doctor. The doctor was so awful to me. He said to me, are you screwing this guy too? I was just like, what? Because I never slept with anybody but Phil. I wasn't promiscuous. I loved him. I was in love with him. And I felt like if you love somebody, that's okay to make love with them, whatever, right? That's how I believed or how I justified it either way. But I wasn't someone that slept around. And so that was really awful. So they put me under. They did the abortion. I was asleep. I remember none of it. And when I woke up, I just remember feeling relieved. But also they told me that it was just an egg. It was just a fertilized egg. That's all. But you have to wait a certain amount of time to have an abortion. It has to be a certain size.
Mm-hmm.
I didn't find that out till I turned, strangely enough, till I turned 40 and I'd already had 3 kids. And when I found that out, Maggie, it was a pain I've never felt before in my life. And that's why I have tears, because while I forgive my 14-year-old self, of course,
Mm-hmm.
right?
Yeah, of course.
I forgive my mom. She feels guilty about it. I didn't know that till I had her on my podcast, on my Mama's Lullaby podcast, that she feels guilty about that. I could have kept the baby. I could have given it up for adoption or placed it for adoption. I could have done a lot of things, but none of those things were really options that were given to me.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Okay. So anyway, that impacts when I got pregnant again at 17. Like, oh my God, I'm going to do this again. I'm going to do this again.
Mm-hmm.
So it was just so gut wrenching and so relieving when we decided to keep the baby. And so fast forward back, we told my mom, I said, how do you feel about being a grandma? She goes, not good. And I said, well, you're going to be a grandma. So there you go. And so we get married in May. I graduate high school in June. I go to school, get married on Saturday. I go to school on Monday, married. So weird. Like nobody knew. And and then I have the baby in September of 85. And we're, and I just begin my life with my addicted husband and dealing with all of that stuff. So that's kind of, that's how my life began. And so when people see me now, they think, oh, of course she can do that because look at her life, and now I'm married to my current husband of 29 years. Very different lifestyle, very different marriage, very different experience. But what being in love with an addict did for me is it got me into therapy. Mm. It got me into understanding myself more and what was going on and what was really happening. So that was extremely helpful. And so I'm grateful. I don't regret anything in my life, honestly. I wouldn't have my two beautiful older children. My husband now and I have a son, Johnny, together. He's 28. Mm. But, it's just, I think we can look at our lives and just go, God, I wish I hadn't done that. I wish I hadn't done that. I wish I knew better. But this is life. This is the physicality of living on this planet as a human, right? A spiritual being having this human experience. I assume that's what we came here to do. And it's not always pleasant, right? Sometimes the hardest things are that give you the greatest gifts, mm-hmm. if they don't kill you.
Such chill. It's so true. I talk about this often, and I think it is such a powerful statement here because when I've been hearing, and I'm sure it happens for you too, especially if you're deep in a podcast or mm-hmm. in a one-on-one conversation mm-hmm. to the depths of someone,
yeah,
that it's the stories that we replay and how we choose to retell them. And something I teach often, and I feel like it's yeah, I remember when I was taught this and I was in the car driving my kids to a space. It was not convenient. And I was not the greatest mom that morning. I was frustrated. We were late and I knew I had a phone call in the car thinking I could be all the things, and I took the call. And then I realized I needed to do it after I dropped off the kids. And I was so frustrated with myself that morning that when Casey taught me this, I pulled over and I wasn't sure if I wanted to throw up because mm-hmm. it's the 3 rules in the game of life. Number 1, the past is perfect. Mm. The reason the past is perfect, because we can't change it. There's no one anywhere that can go back and change it. Anything that happened.
Right.
Second, we're doing the best we can with the tools and resources we think we have. You thought you had the resources. And I think that's the part nowadays with social media, with technology, AI, all these things, we still think we know everything and we still know very little.
Yeah.
It's wild. And then we want to get angry at somebody and then we're just like, but they don't know, or what they did tell, like back to the, I'm sure you've heard it before where, you make a roast and like, why'd you cut off the ends of the roast?
Yes.
I don't know. My mom did. Well, Mom, yeah. Why'd you do it? Because my mom did. Well, why'd Grandma do it? Because it was the size of the pan.
Right, exactly.
Why in the world would you throw away good meat? But you don't ask a question, so you don't know what's possible because you don't have access to.
You don't know what you don't know.
Ah! And the last one was the part where I remember thinking, eh. The third one is we must take personal responsibility. And you did. And that's why the weight of the world was off your shoulders because you are a visionary. You are responsible. You're willing to do the work. And that's why you were willing to go at this very hard path with Phil because you had passion and love. And you were taught by someone who was absolutely in pain for all of your life. And he showed you how he had light and love, even though he was in pain.
Mhm. 100%.
So things are so much easier and simpler than we can ever imagine. And you proved it to be what you're doing now.
Yeah.
So tell us more about Mama's Lullaby because we're
Okay.
definitely going to have a deeper next part because there's some spaces in there that I'm sure would enlighten a number of women because what you've shared is going to be somebody I know there's someone or some lots of someone's they had the exact same experience and they thought they were the only one.
Yeah, 100%. 100%. Yeah, gosh. Mama's Lullaby was a divinely given project. It was not my idea. I did not think it up. I did not dream about it. I've always been very motherly to people. Even when I was a kid, I loved babies. I loved babysitting. I loved little kids. I don't know. I just loved them. And I tended to do that with adults too. I tended to like want to nurture them and want to like help them and. But and I've also adopted a lot of kids into my home, kids that didn't have families here in Tennessee and they come to Nashville to be singers or whatever. They're young, they're 19, 8, 17, 18, 19, 20, and they have no family here. It's like, well, come in here, come to dinner, come whatever. So I've always kind of been that way because when I was young and my dad was when I didn't have a dad and I'd go to my friends' houses, um, there were those families that treated you like family,
Mm.
that you felt comfortable and loved and safe and wanted there. And
Mhm.
then there were those families that like you knew you were annoying them that you were there. Just your presence of being in the house was not wanted.
Mhm.
And so because it was so weird to not have a dad at such a young age, I really, really appreciated the people that welcomed me into their homes with their families and stuff. So that's kind of how I became with people in my home or when I meet people. I want them to feel loved and important and wanted. And so that's just always been my thing. So we're in the hospital in 2016 with my current husband for the weekend for observation. And I'm staying the night with him and I'm trying to go to sleep. And I can't sleep in that chair. It's just so uncomfortable. And that my current husband is also a musician, a producer, Grammy Award winning producer, songwriter, and everything. And so he does a lot of things, and I've done a lot of things with him. And I had just finished a project of my own that I produced. I'd never produced a CD ever before myself, and I had just finished that like the week prior. We put it out. So we had recorded a demo for a client of his that was a lullaby she wrote for her adopted daughter who had never, she was from Vietnam or something, and she lived up in like Minnesota and she'd never seen snow. And she wrote this
Mhm.
beautiful lullaby about what she would experience when she woke up in the morning and all this stuff. And I sang it. And I remember when I sang the demo, how it made me feel. It really made me feel these feelings I hadn't felt in a long time. So I remembered I had that song in my phone. So I just thought maybe if I listen to that song, I'll relax enough and I'll be able to go to sleep. And I did. And when I woke up in the morning, I went, moms need songs that they would relate to or songs that would relax, soothe, and calm them. That's what, not Twinkle, Twinkle, Little Star. They need songs for them. And I was like, oh, okay. So we get home on Monday and I say to my husband, like, I think I'm supposed to write lullabies for moms, which at the time I did not write. I had written in the past a little bit just to get pain out. Like when I was getting divorced, I wrote just to get out whatever was inside of me. But I don't really play an instrument and I hadn't written anything in years. And so he was like, can you give me some time? I just got out of the hospital. It's like, oh yeah, of course. So a couple of years go by and I do nothing with it. I do nothing with it. It's in the back of my head. I'm like, I need to do this. And I'm literally driving in my car one day and I hear, it's time to start writing lullabies. Call Marcus Hummon, who's a friend of ours. Marcus is a Grammy Award winning songwriter. He wrote God Bless the Broken Road. He wrote Cowboy Take Me Away. He wrote just One of These Days, Tim McGraw. He's got so many hits. And he's a dear friend of ours. And Mark played with him and been his band leader for years. But I've never written with him. I've sung for him. I've sung in his plays and with him on stage and all that. So I called him up. He answered the phone, which he never does. And I said, hey, I want to write a lullaby for moms. Would you write it with me? He's like, sure. So we got in the next week, which is unheard of. And we wrote this beautiful song. Okay. And I'd just start getting names of people to write with. And I'd call them and they'd answer, which these people are busy, but they'd answer.
Uh-huh.
They would say yes. And so Amy Grant was one of those people, talk about like trusting God, trusting that voice, because I question that voice. Like, is that me? Is that me? Because it sounds like my voice, but that's not. When I got Call Amy, I had her phone number because she did a benefit for a mutual friend of a friend. Like my friend had a friend who was a friend of hers. And so that's why I had her personal phone number for like 12 years. But of course, being in the industry, I would never abuse having that number. And I thought, really? I mean, she's heard me sing. She knows I sing and all that stuff. But I was like, oh, I'll text her. Hey, Amy, it's Michelle. We would keep in touch over our friend Carmen. But other than that, I never talked with her or anything. So I said, hey, I want to do this project. I'd love to talk to you about it. I never heard from her. So I'm like, okay, she's not interested. I tried. Okay. I'm walking, doing some exercise one day, and I hear, text Amy again, and this time be specific with what you want. And I'm like, oh my gosh, really? Because she's going to think she's like, did you not get the hint? I didn't respond to you. I'm not interested. Right. I'm like, oh, she's going to think I'm a stalker, And I'm like, okay, I hope this is you, God. I hope this is you. And I texted her specifically, told her what I want to do. She texted me right back. She's like, I'm driving for 3 hours. Call me. And so I'm like, oh my gosh, this is crazy. So I call her up. And she's like, I tell her the idea. I said, I want to create music that would soothe, calm, and relax moms. Something for them. Like, she's like, I love that idea. She goes, I would have loved to have something like that when I had little ones, She goes, yeah, I'd love to. I get in with her the next week. And so I'm like, that's crazy. The day I'm supposed to write with her, I go to open up my front door and I have a video of this. Sitting on my front porch is a blue butterfly, just sitting there, just like this. And I'm like, oh my God, I filmed it because I'm like, this is a sign. I know this is a sign from God. And it sat there for like 10 minutes. It didn't move. And then finally it flew away. And so anyway, it's just that's how it happened. So for 2 years, I'd get names, I'd call the people, they'd say yes, we'd write the songs. And I have songs about anything whatever subject matter came up, whether it was, just a new mom, watching her baby, being so in love, to, having that anxiety from postpartum and this, like, I don't know what's happening here, to having a special needs child, to losing a child, to, I have so many subject matters that we've written about. And it's just the body of work is so beautiful. I'm so happy to have been the one to be able to bring this through. I don't really take credit other than doing the work, because every song was divinely guided. I know it was. So that was in 2018. I started writing. So till in 2020 hits, and I'm getting ready to. I have 17 songs and 2 meditations. That's 2 volumes worth of music. Okay, that I have not recorded yet. And I'm like, how am I going to afford to record all this stuff? So someone says, do a crowdfunding campaign or whatever. So I don't know anything about any of that. I was talking to you earlier about technology and me. We're not really great friends. I never grew up with technology. I tend to be a little bit like afraid of it, and like I don't feel that I know how to do it, and my brain doesn't work that way. And that's all the excuses I tell myself, right? So I have other people do that stuff for me. But
You
that's
have a
not
team. It's okay. You have a
yeah,
team.
I have a team. My husband, he's my team for now.
Good.
God
Good.
bless him.
Good.
But anyway, so we get the crowdfunding campaign up, and like you have to have all these levels and blah blah blah. I mean, that was like a whole other and 2020 hits and they shut the world down. And no one's working. How can I ask people for support when no one is working? Well, there went that idea. So I did nothing for like 8 months. Just sat on it. So this project has been like a stop, go, stop, go, stop, go, stop, go, stop. I just kept waiting to hear when it felt right to go. And I kept thinking, I want to do this. I need to get going. I need to get going. But I just kept hearing, be patient. I'll let you know when the time is right. And I'm just like, okay, it's your project. I guess you do it when you want to. And so then, like in 2021, we raised the money to do it, and we recorded it, and then 2024, I finally released the project online, mamaslullaby.com. Yeah. And we've been in the process of, we have a podcast now where we interview moms and other people. The other part of this is the emotional, mental component of women, moms, the health of our mental state, which goes generally by the wayside because we don't have time to worry about ourselves when we are taking care of everyone and everything else. And meanwhile, we're getting sick. I had horrid anxiety. I had panic attacks for years. I couldn't drive for several years. And I found this thing called faster EFT, which is a combination of EFT, which is emotional freedom technique, which is meridian tapping, NLP, which is neuro linguistic programming, which is hypnotherapy, dealing with the subconscious mind, and Gestalt therapy, which is a part of it. What they use from Gestalt is a lot of that questioning and dealing. You had mentioned before about we can't change the past, but we can change how we hold the past in our mind. And that can be changed because when something has happened, it's only happened one time. But as we watch it over and over again, it does tend to change and grow, and and it can affect us physically. And so I've been doing that work with people. I had a session that transformed my life 16, 17 years ago with that process that I paid $1,200 for that 2-hour session. Totally worth
What
every
was it
penny.
called? And what
It
is
was
it?
called Faster EFT. Robert Gene Smith is my teacher and mentor. And he's the one I wanted to do the session with because he was the creator of it. He took all the different modalities he learned and put them together. And he actually was a massage therapist. And that's when he started using it and it started helping people. Then people were having like big shifts and they thought he was doing voodoo. This is way back when. And so he got fired because they like, you're doing some weird voodoo. You're not allowed to do that, but he was making people's headaches go away. He was helping people with emotional stuff. And it was just like interesting. But anyway, so when I had this transformative session with him where I literally, my anxiety left and I didn't notice it had gone because it just wasn't there anymore. And then someone mentioned, hey, did that guy help you? And I was like, oh my gosh, I hadn't even thought about it. And I was able to be in the moment, which I had never been able to be. I'm sure I had anxiety from watching my dad die and be sick and all the things that happened, and then my childhood and whatever. But I didn't know what to do with it. So the other part of Mama's Lullaby, my passion as well as music, is to help moms clean up, and women, not just moms, because every person needs this really, to help them clean up the trauma in their lives and the programming that they have been programmed by nobody's fault. It's just what you know and you do what you know. And until you know better, you can't really do better, right? Like you said. So my goal is to have a foundation where women can get help with this process and maybe others that are helpful at a very, very, very low cost so that everyone can afford to clean it. Because if we clean up our trauma, then we're not going to pass it on to our kids. And if we do, then we know how to help them clean it up. And then you change generations. When you understand how your mind works, you understand how to work with it, and you know how to help your children through traumas or anything that happens at school, whatever it is, then it doesn't get stuck in the body. It doesn't create it changes literally everything. And so that is the other big part of Mama's Lullaby, as well as creating this wonderful community of sage mamas. We used to live in villages where all women gathered around the new mom, and she had this vast array of experience. And now girls are doing it alone. A lot of people are doing it alone. We're not meant to do it alone.
No, no, I agree. I think that's the part that's gotten missed in a number of generations for the unity that comes with a community.
Yeah, yeah,
And yeah, I would 100%, and being an older mom, oh my goodness. Yeah, there such a missing link. And I think that if I'm not mistaken, I feel like that's why there was a burst in, and I probably have to look back in the proper research
Yeah.
of network marketing and direct sales because it
Hmm.
was predominantly with women
Hmm.
to create that unity, to create that space together.
Yeah.
And then social media comes and people think it's a unity. It's kind of, yeah, not.
Oh my gosh, there's so much comparison in the interview, in the podcast that I did with Amy Grant. She talks about the comparison with social media. It's dangerous. It's damaging to us because you look at some woman who's great on social media, you don't know, her life could be a total disaster. And you're feeling terrible about your life, right? You're
Oh
just
yeah,
like,
or it's the filters. And I was part of a
oh
company
God.
during COVID,
Hmm.
and we ended up in an event, and it was a wild adjustment
Hmm.
because they weren't as they seemed. And then they also weren't able to communicate like this
Yeah.
because they never had. And I was just like, okay, this is interesting. Things are not as they seem,
Right. Correct.
kind of like
Exactly.
stage makeup. And, when
Yep.
you go behind the curtain and you take all your makeup off, just like a filter,
Exactly.
all those things.
Yeah.
So, yeah, I would agree. So very fascinating. So, oh my goodness. Yes, clearly I had no idea. No idea. And
Yeah.
what I love is that what you've created really makes such a difference. And it's not in the person or just the woman, because as women who don't have children, they still mother plenty of other spaces in their life and they don't even realize.
Exactly.
Yet, that trauma, no matter if it's not addressed, it's still there.
You know, on the first day of my class with Robert, he said, I just want everybody to know there's nothing wrong with any of you. You are working perfectly according to your programs.
Mm. Programs is the key
It's
word.
like anything that's in our subconscious that we when you think of something and you can feel it still, like it's
Mhm.
just happened, it's
Mhm.
running in the background of your mind. And so you're seeing your perception is through that lens always. But when you can change it and clean it up and re-imprint something different that you enjoy, then you start placing those in there, your whole everything shifts and changes, in a really beautiful way. But I just never had heard of anything like that in my life. And now there's a lot about it now. It's very much more in the open and more in the general population, which I'm so grateful for, because goodness gracious, I could have used that when I was a kid. Oh my gosh.
Wow. And I think that it's such a great awareness now that even though there is technology and, it can be interesting, is
Hmm.
one of the best words I can
Yeah.
usually term it,
Yeah.
it doesn't mean we necessarily know it.
No, no.
And so we experience that through others. And so your experience brought this. And so in my notes, I was so faster EFT.
Hmm.
And what was the third one? Gosh.
Oh,
So
wait, the third one, what? Oh, Gestalt therapy. It's an older, therapy they would use when psychiatrists would use to ask questions. It's about like the part that I'm talking about, how we question is we're trying to find out how your mind does what it does, how it represents something. So sometimes, like I had this client, he had literally no feelings at all. He felt nothing. Well, that's a feeling.
yeah.
So just notice how you feel nothing.
Hmm.
It's very simple. Like I'll take people through a very simple process of feeling good for no reason
Hmm.
to show how powerful your mind is, right? Like you can think of, I give this example a lot. Say you've been to the doctors, they did your blood work, they call you up one day and they say, I'm so sorry, you have stage 4 cancer and you have about a month to live. And you hang up the phone and your body goes into fight or flight or whatever happens, right?
Hmm.
And 5 minutes later, they call you back. They're like, we're so sorry. We're so sorry. That wasn't your blood work. You're fine. You're fine. That wasn't your blood work.
Take.
What has changed in that 5 minutes? Nothing physically has changed except the thought in your mind. Okay. And so our thoughts are so powerful, as you know, that we don't always take responsibility for our thoughts. And in taking responsibility, it frees us because if I am not responsible, then I give you power to control me.
Hmm.
What you say, makes me feel this whole thing like they make me feel this way. They make me feel that way. I still fall into that trap sometimes, but
Mhm.
I know better because no one can make me feel anything I don't choose to feel.
I said that this week to a client. I said, you know, Eleanor Roosevelt said, no one can make you feel inferior without your permission. And she was like, what? I'm like, yeah, it's a really thing. It's a
If
thing.
you don't have some part of you that believes that, you wouldn't even recognize it, right? Like for if I said to you, oh, Maggie, your hair's black. Your hair's black. You'd be like, okay, sure, no problem, whatever. But if I said your hair looks a little, I don't know, maybe a little dull, you might want to. And if for some reason you thought maybe your hair did look a little, whatever, I don't know. You know what I'm saying? It's a bad
Fill
example,
in the
but
blank, fill in the blank.
but
Yeah.
but fill in the blank, right? So in our society has been really forcing us to be victims
Yes. Yeah.
and forcing us to separate.
Hmm.
And I say we can be each other's best friends or worst enemy. It's up to us. And I say, let's be each other's best friends. We can lift each other up just as easily as we can tear each other down.
Hmm.
But that requires us to have some understanding of who we are
Hmm.
and love ourselves. And that's what's really missing is the love for ourselves. That little child inside of us, right? Whenever we sit in front of the mirror and we go, oh, God, I'm so ugly, I'm so fat, I'm so old, blah, 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 whatever we say,
Hmm.
imagine there's a small child listening and you're talking to them because that's who you're talking to.
Hmm.
And we have to love that child. And like, I'm getting older. It's weird to get older. It's weird to see lines on my face. I'm not going to lie. It's weird.
Hmm.
But those lines represent to me my life,
Hmm.
my history. But in our society, it's become this thing of like, no, you should never look old. Old is terrible. Never look old. I saw an interview. I was like, what happened to the grandmas? There's no more grandmas anymore. There's no more women that are wrinkled and everyone's got, their faces all perfect and beautiful and they're 80. It's like, it's kind of in a way like Cher, it's kind of weird. I mean, she looks great, but she's 80, it's like, it's just, I don't know. And I'm not making judgment. It's just the pressure. If that's what you want to do, because you want to do it, because you not for any other reason,
Hmm.
not because someone out there is going to judge you, that's a different thing. But
It's so true. My son has said many times, Mom, why do you do lashes? I just don't understand. And I said, because they make me feel great, because I gave you the lashes you have. I don't have them
exactly.
anymore. So it's something of my
That's right.
reflection. No one else's.
That's right.
It's no judgment. I don't really care if somebody thinks they're too much, not enough, yellow,
Right.
boo, whatever. It's up to me and how my reflection is.
Right.
So you can keep telling me what you think, but that's your opinion of what I feel most
That's right.
comfortable with.
That's right.
And so
Yeah.
it's so interesting how many times we forget that. And
Hmm.
it's like, oh, just
Yeah.
such an awareness. It's all
Yeah.
a reflection. But that visual of us within us is very rich, very rich. And
That's usually the person who's talking when you're freaking out or whatever. That's usually the child who's irrational,
mhm,
scared. It's not usually the adult with the rational mind, you
mhm.
know. But just
Wisdom,
giving your
the
huh?
wisdom, the wisdom.
Yeah. 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 I mean, and just uh, having that knowledge that you have the power to decide
Mhm,
how you feel, how you
mhm,
want to feel. Somebody can be acting all kinds of ways. They could be totally saying awful things to you. And you can take it in, or you can go, it's interesting that they must really be hurting inside.
mhm,
There's something going on with that person. It's like watching something you've never seen before. Just
mhm,
observing, but not taking it in. And we all have that power. But if there's something that hits us and we're taking it in, then we need to look at that and go, what is it in me? What is it
mhm.
in me that believes some of this might be true?
Letting
And
that go.
that's when you start to do the work, and that's when you start really shifting your life in a beautiful way.
Mhm. In the most beautiful way. I love that. I imagine somebody had said, I'm trying to remember what year it was. They had said, well, we just need to be like Teflon. And I remember thinking,
Mhm.
like the stuff it's non-stick, I don't cook with that anymore. What
It's
they meant,
terrible for you. Why are you doing
yeah,
that?
I know. I was like, wait a second. It was that moment where I was like, do you know that that's bad for you? But what the person was attaching to is it's non-stick. It just slips right
That's
off.
right. That's right.
And so it was like, okay, let that slip off because
Yeah.
that heat that's coming your way is not necessarily yours.
Bingo. What's yours and what isn't yours is sometimes the biggest challenge to decipher. Yeah, but so
Okay, well,
powerful.
we're definitely going to need to do this again
Okay,
because,
I'll do it.
yes, there's so much stuff. Just like I'm like thinking about, I had a note. I think it's upstairs on my kitchen table. It was in actually my daily journal that when we were talking, I was totally caught off guard and I was like, I was writing all throughout these pages when we were
When we
talking.
were talking on the phone, oh, that's so funny.
Because I didn't know that I was necessarily, same thing when you called Amy Grant. I didn't know I was going to catch you, but I thought I was
Right.
going to leave
Oh,
you a message and connect.
yeah.
And when I did, I was like, I needed, like, you're a pen to paper person I needed to have. And a number of questions. And I was literally just looking
Um,
because I had written out one of the questions. Hold on. Let's see if I wrote it on my little 3x5 card. No, oh my gosh. It was what one of the questions you said. Hold on, let me see if I can get it.
okay. Okay.
What is it that you want in this in the desire of what you're willing to like it was talking about what people want. Like if we talk to our kids about what it is that they desire, it's not like money because a doctor is going to be working and gives you money, but it's not the
Oh, I know exactly what you're talking about. The question is not what you want to do for your life or what you want to be. It's how do you want to feel?
how do you want to feel?
How do you want to feel in your life? And what kind of lifestyle do you want to live? And
That's what
then you look at people who have the kind of lifestyle you want to live and they seem to be feeling the way you want to feel, and then that's what you go towards. As far as picking a career, I think, because people do get into careers thinking they thought it was going to be this, and it wasn't anything like what they thought. Not like TV, not like the movies. I love the movies where everybody's always rich and the houses are always perfect. Like my rom-coms, I love my rom-coms. I think one of my favorites is The Holiday. Remember The Holiday? And of course, Carmen Diaz's house is so gorgeous and everything's so beautiful and perfect. Her life's a mess, but her house is freaking cool.
Mhm,
Um, it's like, how do you want to feel?
mhm.
When I work with people with the tapping, sometimes they don't know what they want their life to look like, but they do know how they want to feel. And if you can focus on how you want to feel in your life, then you can practice that feeling and allow God to bring that, whatever those things are that would make you feel that way to you.
Oh
You
my
know,
gosh. Oh my gosh. I have somebody on my heart right now that like, as soon as this finishes, I'm going to send this directly to her because she had a number of these questions in
mm.
our group. And you have put it so eloquently. And yeah, it's perfect. It's perfect. Oh my gosh, we will reschedule,
Okay.
not reschedule. We will schedule another
Yes.
session because I believe that there's so many pieces that will be a blessing to so many. And
I
that's
believe it
because
too.
you stepped into the opportunity to know that it it was for you, not about you, yet it was within you.
Correct. Good
Yeah.
way to put it.
Well, thank you for your precious
Oh,
time. I'm
thank you.
honored and
Oh, as am
grateful to
I.
have crossed your path. So
Me
grateful.
too. Me too. Thank you so much.